When I walked in front of the guests at my birthday party with a black eye, everyone was instantly stunned. The silence was absolute. Conversations died mid-sentence, and glasses hung suspended in the air. I could feel every pair of eyes fixed on my face, on the violet swelling around my left eye, on the bruise that no amount of makeup could hide. Then my son, Marcus, stepped forward and said in a clear, proud voice, "It was my wife who put her in her place so she'd learn some respect." Tessa Hawthorne, my daughter-in-law, squared her shoulders next to him, satisfied, a small, poisonous smile gleaming on her lips. She looked at me as if I were garbage, as if I were nothing. Then my brother Elijah walked up to Marcus, and what he said changed everything. That day, I lost my son, but I also found myself. Let me tell you how I came to that moment of public humiliation, how I went from being a cherished mother to becoming the enemy in my own home. Because this didn't start with a punch. It began long before, with soft words and fake smiles, with poison disguised as concern. 3 years ago, when my husband passed, the world lost its color. Franklin, my partner of 42 years, left silently one cold winter morning, a massive sudden heart attack. I didn't even have time to say goodbye. One morning he was next to me, warm beneath the covers, and the next he was cold, gone, absent forever. The pain was so intense I thought I would drown. I cried in the shower so Marcus wouldn't hear me. I cried while I cooked. I cried staring at the empty side of the bed. But I had to be strong. Marcus needed me. He had lost his father, too. The house we lived in was our fortress, a beautiful property Franklin had bought when Marcus was just a boy. 2 stories, a sprawling backyard, and large windows that let in the morning sun. Franklin had left it in my name in his will. "It's yours, Eleanor," he'd told me months before he passed, as if he'd sensed something. "Don't let anyone take what we built together." We signed the papers. Everything was in order. I was the legal owner of that house, those memories, every corner where I had raised my son. Marcus was living with me. After his father's death, he decided to stay. "I'm not going to leave you alone, Mom," he'd tell me while we had coffee in the mornings. He worked for a construction company. He'd leave early, come back tired, but always with a smile for me. We ate dinner together, watched movies on Sundays, talked about Franklin, about memories, about how much we missed him. The shared grief was more bearable. I cooked his favorite meals. He fixed things that broke around the house. We were a team. We were family. I thought it would always be this way. Then Tessa came along. He met her at a work conference. She was an event coordinator, polished, self-assured, with that kind of sleek beauty straight out of a magazine. Dark hair, always perfectly styled, impeccable nails, expensive clothes. The first time he brought her home, she smiled at me with blinding white teeth and gave me a hug that felt calculated, measured to the millimeter. "Mrs. Jenkins, Marcus talks about you so much," she said in a sweet voice. "It's a pleasure to meet the woman who raised such a wonderful man." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to think she was genuine. I prepared a special dinner that night, baked chicken with the spices Marcus loved, a fresh salad, still warm homemade cornbread. Tessa ate little, pushing the food around her plate while she made comments about carbs and calories. "I barely eat grains," she said, looking at the cornbread with something akin to disdain. "You have to take care of yourself, right?" She smiled, but there was something sharp in that smile, something that made me uneasy. Over the next few months, Tessa became a part of our lives. She came to dinner 2 or 3 times a week, always polite, always smiling. But I started noticing small things, the way she looked at the house, as if evaluating it, the comments that seemed innocent but carried hidden barbs. "This living room is so classic," she'd say, touching the furniture Franklin and I had chosen together. "I'd bet it's 30 years old, right? There are so many modern styles now." Or when she saw the family photos on the wall. "It's sweet that you keep so many memories of the past, Eleanor, though sometimes clinging too much to yesterday doesn't leave room for tomorrow." Marcus noticed nothing. He was in love, blind. When I tried to mention something, he'd defend her, but with a condescending smile. "Mom, Tessa just wants to help. She's used to organizing spaces. It's her job." And I kept quiet. I didn't want to be that mother-in-law, that bitter woman who couldn't accept her son's partner, so I swallowed my doubts and smiled. They got married 6 months later. A small but elegant wedding. Tessa organized everything. I barely participated. "Don't worry, Mrs. Jenkins," she'd tell me. "I've got this covered. You just relax and enjoy." On the wedding day, watching them exchange vows, I felt a knot in my stomach. I missed Franklin. He would have known what to say. He would have seen what I was beginning to see. After the honeymoon, Tessa moved into the house. "It's temporary, Mom," Marcus explained, "just until we find our own place." I accepted. He was my son. I wasn't going to deny him a roof, but temporary turned into a month, then 2, then 6. And with each passing day, Tessa occupied more space. She reorganized the kitchen, changed the dining room curtains, moved the living room furniture. "We just need to feel at home, Eleanor," she'd say with that soft smile. And I let her because I didn't want trouble. But then the party started. Tessa would invite friends, colleagues, people I didn't know. They filled the living room, laughing loudly, drinking late, and when I appeared, the atmosphere changed. Conversation stopped. They looked at me as if I were an intruder in my own house. "Mom, don't you want to go rest?" Marcus would say gently. "We'll take care of things here." And I'd go up to my room, feeling displaced, invisible, redundant. Have you ever felt like a stranger in your own home? Have you watched someone slowly take your space and felt powerless to stop it? The months passed, and the house ceased to be mine. Not legally, not on paper, but in every detail that mattered. Tessa redecorated without asking permission. One day I came home, and the cream-colored curtains Franklin had chosen were gone. In their place hung minimalist gray drapes that made the living room feel cold, impersonal. "The others were so dated, Eleanor," Tessa explained as she folded the old curtains into a box. "These are more sleek, more current. You'll get used to it." But I didn't want to get used to it. I wanted my curtains. I wanted my house. I wanted someone to ask me before changing the things Franklin and I had built together. Marcus worked longer and longer hours. He left before dawn and came back after 9 o'clock at night. We ate separately. I in the kitchen, they in the dining room with the door closed. I could hear their laughter, their private conversations, but I was no longer a part of it. I was no longer a part of my son's life. When I tried to talk to him, he was always tired, distracted, looking at his phone. "We'll talk later, Mom," he'd say without lifting his gaze. "I have to check some emails now." And I was left with the words stuck in my throat. Tessa began making more direct comments. She no longer bothered to disguise her barbs with sweetness. One afternoon, while I was cooking, she walked into the kitchen and wrinkled her nose. "Eleanor, you always cook with so much grease. The smell permeates the whole house." She left an aromatherapy candle on the counter. "Use this afterward, please. My friends are coming tomorrow, and I don't want it to smell like old food." Old food. That's what she called the stew I was preparing, the same recipe Marcus had loved all his life. I started cooking less, retreating more into my room. The house felt hostile. Every space bore Tessa's mark. Her magazines on the coffee table, her shoes by the entryway, her expensive perfume floating in the air. I was becoming invisible, a ghost in my own home. And the worst part was that Marcus didn't see it, or didn't want to see it. One night, I went downstairs for water. It was past 11 o'clock. I thought everyone was asleep, but I heard voices in the den. The door was slightly ajar. I approached quietly. Tessa was talking to Marcus, her voice low but intense. "We can't keep going like this, honey. This house is too big for 3 people, and your mother is getting older. Wouldn't it be better if she lived in a smaller place, something more manageable for her? There are some very nice senior residences with people her age. She'd have company. She'd be happy." My heart stopped. Marcus was silent for a moment that felt like forever. Then he sighed. "I don't know, Tessa. She's my mother. I can't just kick her out." Tessa gave a soft laugh. "It's not about kicking her out, my love. It's about all of us having our space. Think about it. We could have this house to ourselves, start our family. Don't you want that?" I backed away before hearing Marcus's reply. I went upstairs on shaky legs. I locked myself in my room and cried silently, my face buried in a pillow so they wouldn't hear me. They wanted to kick me out. They wanted my house, the house Franklin had left me, the house where I had raised my son, and Marcus was considering it. My own son was thinking of getting rid of me as if I were old furniture that didn't match the new decor. The following days were tense. I couldn't look at Tessa without feeling nauseous. She knew. I could see it in her eyes, in the way she smiled at me with that quiet superiority. She knew I had heard, and she didn't care. In fact, she seemed to enjoy it. She started being more territorial. "Eleanor, could you knock before you enter the living room? Sometimes we're having private conversations." Or, "Eleanor, better not use the washer after 7 o'clock. The noise bothers us when we're watching TV." The house had rules now, rules I hadn't made, rules that made me an unwelcome guest. I tried to talk to Marcus. One morning I caught him before he left for work. "Son, I need to talk to you." He was checking his briefcase, rushed as always. "What is it, Mom?" I took a deep breath. "I feel like Tessa and we're not getting along. I feel like I'm not welcome here anymore." Marcus frowned. "Mom, don't say that. This is your house." But he said it automatically, without conviction, like someone repeating a learned phrase. "Then why do I feel like I have to ask permission for everything? Why do I feel like I'm in the way?" Marcus ran a hand through his hair, clearly uncomfortable. "It's just that Tessa is used to having her space. It's nothing personal. Just try to be more flexible for me, please." And he left. He left me standing there with the words of defense that never came. That night, Tessa hosted another dinner. 6 people arrived. They filled the dining room, loud and cheerful. I was in the kitchen preparing tea when one of Tessa's friends walked in. She looked surprised. "Oh, hello? I didn't know there was someone else here." Before I could answer, Tessa appeared behind her. "Oh, she's Eleanor, Marcus's mother. She lives here." The way she said it. She lives here. As if I were a squatter, as if it wasn't my house. The friend nodded politely, and they left. I heard their laughter in the dining room. I stood in my own kitchen, feeling small, humiliated, invisible. The weeks passed. Tessa started talking about renovations. "This kitchen is so old," she'd tell Marcus while I was standing right there, as if I couldn't hear her. "We should modernize it. Change the cabinets, put an island in the center. Have you seen how much property value increases with a renovated kitchen? We could invest about $50,000 and recoup double if we ever sell." "Sell," she said, "we sell," as if the house were hers, as if I didn't exist. Then my birthday arrived. 70 years old. Marcus suggested throwing a party. "You deserve to celebrate, Mom," he said with a smile that reminded me of the boy he had been. For a moment, I felt hope. Maybe things could get better. Maybe I still mattered. Tessa took charge of everything. She invited relatives, friends, neighbors. She decorated the living room with silver balloons and streamers. She prepared a table with elegant appetizers. On the outside, everything looked perfect, but I felt a strange tension in the air. Something wasn't right. The morning of my birthday, I went downstairs for breakfast. Tessa was in the kitchen talking on the phone. When she saw me, she abruptly cut the call. "Good morning, Eleanor." Her tone was cold. I poured myself coffee in silence. She remained standing there, looking at me with an expression I couldn't decipher. "Do you know what day it is?" I asked, trying to break the ice. "Yes, your birthday." Silence. "And also the day you should make important decisions about your future." My hand paused, the cup halfway to my mouth. "What do you mean?" Tessa crossed her arms. "Marcus and I have been talking. We need this house, Eleanor. We want to start a family. We need space, privacy. And you need a place more appropriate for your age." I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. "This is my house, Tessa," she smiled, that small, poisonous smile. "For now." I didn't know how to respond. I went to my room with a racing heart. I sat on the edge of the bed, trembling. What was happening? How had I gotten here? I looked at the photos on my nightstand. Franklin and me on our wedding day, Marcus as a baby, our happy family, and now everything was falling apart. That afternoon, I got ready for my own party, feeling a massive weight on my chest. I put on the ivory dress I had bought especially for the occasion. I carefully applied makeup, trying to hide the dark circles, the marks of insomnia and distress. But when I looked in the mirror, I saw a tired woman, a woman who was losing the battle in her own home. I took a deep breath. I had to go downstairs. The guests would arrive soon. I couldn't hide in my room on my birthday. I walked down the stairs slowly. The living room was transformed. Tessa had done an impeccable job. Everything looked elegant, sophisticated, perfect. But it didn't feel like my party. It felt like someone else's event. The first guests started arriving. My brother Elijah was one of the first. He hugged me tight and whispered in my ear, "Are you okay? You look pale." I forced a smile. "I'm fine, just a little tired." He looked at me with concern but didn't push it. More people arrived, cousins, old friends, neighbors. Everyone congratulated me, hugged me, wished me the best. For a moment, surrounded by people who loved me, I almost forgot the tension I was living under. Tessa moved among the guests like the perfect hostess, smiling, charming, attentive. Marcus was by her side, proud of his wife. I watched them from a distance, feeling like I was observing someone else's life, my own party, and I was a spectator. Tessa approached at one point with 2 glasses of wine in her hands. She offered me one. "Happy birthday, Eleanor," she said, with that smile that no longer fooled me. I took the glass out of politeness. "Thank you for organizing all this." She tilted her head. "It's the least I could do. After all, this house will soon be completely ours, and we want to start on the right foot." She said it softly, just for me, while others conversed around us. It was a threat disguised as courtesy. I needed air. I excused myself and went up to the second floor. I went into the bathroom and closed the door. I leaned against the sink, breathing hard. I had to calm down. I couldn't ruin my own party with a panic attack. I splashed cold water on my wrists. I breathed deeply, once, twice, 3 times. When I felt more stable, I left the bathroom, and then I saw her. Tessa was in the hallway in front of my bedroom door. She had my jewelry box in her hands. My jewelry box, the small wooden chest where I kept the few pieces Franklin had given me over the years. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice trembling. Tessa turned around with no hint of guilt on her face. "Just looking. These pieces are very old, aren't they? They must be worth something." I walked toward her and snatched the box out of her hands. "You have no right to touch my things." She laughed, a soft, contemptuous laugh. "Relax, Eleanor. I wasn't going to steal them, although with what they're worth, they could help pay for part of the kitchen renovation." I felt the rage rising in my throat like lava. "Get out of my room!" Tessa took a step toward me. We were inches apart. "This isn't your room. This is our house, and the sooner you understand that, the better for everyone." Something snapped inside me. All the accumulated humiliation, all the forced silence, all the invisibility I had endured for months suddenly exploded. "This house is mine. It's in my name. Franklin left it to me, and you have no right." The words came out with more force than I expected. Tessa narrowed her eyes. Her face changed. The mask of politeness fell away, and I saw something ugly, something cruel beneath it. "You're a ridiculous old woman, clinging to the past. Marcus doesn't need you anymore. I'm his family now, and we'll get this house with or without your permission." I should have kept quiet. I should have gone downstairs and forgotten the matter, but I couldn't. "Get out!" I pointed to the door. Tessa let out a loud laugh. "Call Marcus. Go ahead. He always believes me. Always." And she was right. We both knew it. But I couldn't back down now. "Out!" I signaled the door. Tessa looked at me with pure hatred. Then, without warning, she shoved me. It wasn't a hard push, but I wasn't expecting it. I lost my balance. My hip hit the edge of the dresser. I tried to grab something, but my hand slipped. I fell on my side. My head hit the corner of the nightstand. The pain was instant, sharp, blinding. I brought my hand to my eye and felt moisture. Blood. Tessa stood there looking down at me on the floor. For a second, I saw something akin to fear in her eyes, but she quickly composed herself. "You tripped, all by yourself," she said in a firm voice. "You're old and clumsy. You fell." She looked at me for a few more seconds, then left the room, closing the door behind her. I lay there on the floor, touching my eye, which was beginning to swell. The physical pain was nothing compared to the humiliation, the helplessness, the horror of what had just happened. I don't know how long I was there. Maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10. Finally, I got up and looked at myself in the mirror. The skin around my eye was already bruising. There was a small cut on my eyebrow. Blood had left a thin line down my cheek. I cleaned myself with a towel. I tried to cover it with makeup, but it was useless. The bruise was too obvious. Downstairs, I could hear music, laughter, conversations. My party was going on as if nothing had happened, and I was up here, bleeding, beaten, broken. I thought about not going down, about staying locked up, waiting for everyone to leave. But then I heard Marcus's voice calling me, "Mom, come on, we're going to cut the cake." I couldn't hide. It was my birthday. I had to face what had happened. So I walked down slowly. Every step was an effort. When I reached the bottom stair, conversations stopped. One by one, the guests turned toward me. I saw their faces change: surprise, horror, confusion. Silence fell like a heavy slab. Marcus was the first to speak, but not with concern, not with alarm. He stepped forward and said, in a clear, almost proud voice, "It was my wife who put her in her place so she'd learn some respect." The words dropped like bombs into the silence. Tessa squared her shoulders next to him, satisfied. She looked at me with those cold, victorious eyes. The guests were motionless. No one knew what to say. No one knew what to do. And I stood there, humiliated in the most horrible way I could imagine. My own son justifying the violence against me. My own son choosing her over me. Then Elijah pushed his way through the crowd. His face was red with fury. He walked straight up to Marcus and looked at him with an intensity I had never seen before. "What kind of man lets his wife assault his mother and then celebrates it in front of everyone?" he said in a low voice, heavy with contempt. Marcus turned pale. "Uncle, it's not what it looks like." Elijah interrupted him. "Your father would be ashamed of you." The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Tessa tried to grab his arm, but Elijah glared at her. "And you came into this family with lies. We all see it." Some guests began to murmur. Others looked at the floor, uncomfortable. A cousin approached me. "Eleanor, are you okay? Do you need us to call someone?" I shook my head. Tears were beginning to cloud my vision, but I wasn't going to cry. Not here, not in front of them. Elijah gently took my arm. "Let's go upstairs. I'll clean that wound for you." But before I could move, Tessa spoke. Her voice was shrill, desperate. "She provoked me. She insulted me. I was only defending myself." Elijah turned to her. "Liar." The word hung in the air. Marcus finally reacted. He stepped between Elijah and Tessa, protecting her as if she were the victim. "Uncle, that's enough. You don't know what happened." Elijah gave a bitter laugh. "I don't know? I'm looking at your mother with a black eye, and you're defending the person who hit her. I know exactly what happened here." More guests began to retreat. Some said awkward goodbyes. Others simply left without a word. The party was falling apart. My birthday had become a public nightmare. An elderly woman, a friend of my late husband, approached before leaving. She took my hand and whispered, "Franklin would never have allowed this. Take care, Eleanor." And she left, those words piercing my heart. Elijah led me to the kitchen, closed the door, sat me on a chair, and began to carefully examine my eye. "This needs ice," he said as he opened the freezer. He wrapped ice cubes in a clean cloth and pressed it gently against my face. The cold made me flinch, but the pain began to subside a little. How did it happen? Elijah asked, his voice controlled, though I could see the contained fury in his eyes. I told him everything. The jewelry box, the argument, the shove, the fall. As I spoke, I watched his jaw tighten more and more. "This can't continue," he said when I finished. "This house is yours, legally yours. She has no right." I dried the tears that had begun to fall without permission. "But Marcus, he's on her side. He didn't even ask if I was okay. He just defended her." Elijah clenched his fists. "Marcus is blinded, but he's going to wake up. And when he does, he's going to regret it." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to think that my son would return to the man I had raised. But something inside me had broken that night, something that might never be repaired. The kitchen door burst open. Marcus walked in with Tessa on his heels. "Mom, we need to talk," he said in a serious tone. Elijah stood up, interposing himself. "Don't come near her." Marcus looked at him with frustration. "She's my mother. I have the right to talk to her." Elijah didn't move. "You lost that right when you let your wife hit her and humiliate her in front of everyone." Tessa intervened, her voice sharp and defensive. "It was an accident. She tripped. I didn't touch her." I looked at her. There she was, lying brazenly, without an ounce of remorse on her face. "You pushed me," I said, my voice trembling but firm. "You pushed me, and I fell. And then you left me lying on the floor like garbage." Tessa shook her head, fake tears beginning to form in her eyes. "Marcus, she's lying. She's trying to separate us. She's jealous of what we have." It was unbelievable. She was reversing the roles, making herself the victim. And Marcus looked at her with concern, as if he really believed she was the one who needed protection. "Eleanor has always been difficult," Tessa continued, her voice breaking. "Since the day she met me, she's treated me poorly, made me feel like I don't belong here. I just want peace. I want us to be a family." Every word was a stab. She was building a narrative where I was the villain and she was the innocent victim, and Marcus was buying all of it. "Mom," he said, turning toward me, maybe you need to rest. You're stressed. Confused." Confused. He was calling me confused. As if I were crazy. As if I had invented everything. Elijah exploded. "Are you listening to yourself, Marcus? Your mother has a black eye. And you're trying to convince her that she's confused?" Marcus ran his hands through his hair, overwhelmed. "I don't know what to believe. I wasn't there. I didn't see what happened." Tessa clung to his arm, sobbing against his shoulder. "She hates me, Marcus. She's never accepted me. Now she's inventing things so you'll kick me out of the house." It was a masterful performance, and it was working. I stood up from the chair. The ice fell to the floor. I looked my son directly in the eyes. "Marcus, I am your mother. I raised you alone after your father died. I gave you everything I had. I loved you unconditionally. And now you're calling me a liar to protect a woman who hit me." My voice broke on the last word. Marcus looked away. He couldn't hold my gaze, and in that moment I knew I had lost him. Maybe not forever, but certainly in that instant. Tessa had won. "I want you to leave," I said with all the dignity I could muster. "This is my house. I want you to pack your things and go." Tessa stopped crying instantly. Her face hardened. "This house is too big for you alone. You need help. You need supervision." The word supervision sounded like venom. Elijah stepped forward. "The only one who needs to leave is you. Eleanor is the legal owner of this property. You can leave voluntarily, or we can call the police and have you forcibly removed." Marcus finally spoke, and his words shattered me. "We're not leaving. This house should be mine. My father built it for our family, for me. It's not fair that Mom has everything when I need to start my own family." There it was, the truth. He didn't care about my well-being. He didn't care that I had been hit. He cared about the house, the property, the money. Tessa had planted that idea in his head, and now he was repeating it as if it were his own. "Your father left this house to me because he trusted I would take care of it," I said, my voice trembling. "Because he knew it was my refuge, my security. And you want to take it from me. Marcus didn't answer. Tessa did. You need to be realistic, Eleanor. You're old. How many more years are you going to live here? 10, maybe 15 if you're lucky. We're young. We need this space now. We can take care of you somewhere else. A more appropriate place. Every word was calculated, cold, merciless. Elijah pulled out his phone. I'm calling the police right now. Marcus turned pale. Uncle, don't do this. I'm your nephew. Elijah looked at him with deep disappointment. And she is my sister, and you are destroying her for a woman who only wants your money. Tessa laughed. My money? Marcus doesn't have money. Everything is in her name. She pointed at me with contempt. That's why we're here. That's why we need her to understand that she's no longer in this alone. The kitchen door opened again. It was Mr. Rob Vance, the family attorney. He had been a close friend of my husband and had drafted his will. Apparently, someone had called him during the chaos of the party. He walked in, briefcase in hand, looking seriously at the scene. Good evening. I heard there was some trouble here. His presence immediately changed the atmosphere. Tessa tensed. Marcus looked confused. Elijah sighed with relief. Rob, it's good you're here, Elijah said. We need to clear up some things about the ownership of this house. The attorney nodded, opened his briefcase, and pulled out a folder. I just happened to bring the documents. I thought we might need them. He looked at Marcus and Tessa. I believe there is some confusion about the legal situation of this property. Tessa straightened her back, trying to regain her composure. There's no confusion. We all know the house is in Eleanor's name, but Marcus is her son, her only heir. It will eventually be his. Rob looked at her with a neutral expression, but his eyes were sharp. That's not exactly correct. He opened the folder and took out several documents. The will of Eleanor's late husband has certain specific clauses. My heart started beating faster. Clauses? Franklin had never mentioned anything like that to me. The attorney continued. The house was left to Eleanor with absolute ownership, but a protective clause exists. Marcus frowned. What does that mean? Rob looked at me briefly, as if asking permission. I nodded. I needed to know. Everyone needed to know. It means that if Eleanor is pressured, coerced, or forced to abandon the property by any member of the family, the house does not pass to direct heirs. Instead, it will be donated entirely to a charitable institution specified in the will. The silence that followed was absolute. Tessa turned pale. Marcus opened his mouth, but no sound came out. The attorney's words hung in the air like a sentence. Tessa was the first to react. That's ridiculous. It can't be legal. Rob looked at her with professional calm. It is completely legal. Mr. Jenkins made his intentions very clear. He wanted to protect his wife from any kind of family pressure after his death. No coercion, no manipulation. He pulled another document from the folder. Here is the exact clause. If Eleanor is forced to sell, donate, or abandon the property under coercion of any kind, the house automatically passes to the St. Jude Senior Wellness Fund. Marcus would inherit absolutely nothing. Marcus slumped into a chair. His face had lost all color. Dad did that? It wasn't a question. It was a realization filled with shock. Rob nodded. Your father was a wise man. He had seen many cases of families destroyed by inheritances. He wanted to make sure Eleanor had a secure place until the end of her days. No pressure, no manipulation. He looked directly at Tessa when he said the last word. She clenched her fists, her mask of sweetness utterly destroyed. Now only raw anger remained on her face. So, all this time, Elijah said, looking at Tessa with contempt, all this planning to get my sister out of her house, all the humiliations, the slights, the shove today, it was all for nothing. Because you were never going to get this house. Tessa stepped back as if she'd been slapped. I didn't have a plan. But her voice sounded hollow. We all knew the truth. Everything was clear now. The renovations she wanted to make, the comments about property value, the conversations I had overheard about senior residences. It had all been a calculated strategy to push me out of my own home. Marcus slowly got up. He looked at me. He really looked at me for the first time in months. I saw confusion in his eyes. I saw shame beginning to appear. "Mom, I didn't know." His voice was barely a whisper. "I didn't know anything about that clause." I looked at him, feeling a deep ache in my chest. "But you knew you were making me feel bad. You knew I felt displaced in my own home, and you did nothing. You chose to believe her instead of me." Marcus opened his mouth to reply, but the words didn't come. What could he say? It was all true. Tessa changed tactics. Her eyes filled with tears again. "Marcus, honey, you have to believe me. I didn't know anything about this. I just wanted us to have our own space. I wanted us to be happy." She clung to his arm desperately. "Don't leave me, please. We're in this together." But Marcus pulled away from her grip. Something had shifted in his expression. The fog was starting to lift. "How long have you been planning this?" he asked in a dangerously low voice. Tessa shook her head. "I didn't plan anything. You're misunderstanding everything." Rob intervened again. "There's something else you should know." He took out another document. 3 weeks ago, someone requested a professional valuation of this property. The appraiser contacted the office because they noticed the name on the request did not match the registered owner. He looked at Tessa. The request was made by Tessa Hawthorne. She paid $500 for a complete appraisal of the house, including future value projections, if certain renovations were done. The silence was deafening. Marcus looked at his wife as if she were a stranger. "Also," Rob continued, "we received an inquiry 2 weeks ago asking about the legal processes for declaring an elderly person incompetent to manage their own assets." My heart stopped. Incompetent? They had tried to declare me incompetent? The inquiry came from the same phone number registered under Tessa Hawthorne's name. Rob closed the folder. "We didn't proceed with any information, of course, but it was documented." Tessa backed up until she was against the wall. "That's a lie. You're all making this up to turn him against me." Marcus turned to her with fury in his eyes. "You tried to declare my mother incompetent? You tried to take her house using the law?" Tessa was sobbing now, but they were tears of panic, not sadness. I was just looking into options. I wasn't going to do anything. I just wanted to know if it was possible." Marcus ran his hands over his face. "My God, what have I done? What did you turn me into?" He looked at her with horror, as if he could finally see what we had all seen from the beginning. Elijah placed a hand on my shoulder. "Eleanor, do you want them to leave tonight?" I looked at Marcus, my son, the boy I had raised, the man he had become, whom I no longer recognized. Part of me wanted to scream at him, wanted to throw him out of the house immediately, but another part, the part that had been a mother for so long, still felt love for him. A wounded, broken love, but love nonetheless. "Marcus can stay tonight," I said in a tired voice. "But she leaves now." Tessa's eyes widened in shock. "You can't do this. I'm his wife." I looked at her directly. "This is my house, and I want you out of it." Marcus didn't defend her this time. He stood silent, staring at the floor. Tessa looked at him, waiting for him to say something, to protect her as he always had, but he didn't move. Reality had finally hit him. Rob spoke in a professional tone. "Mrs. Hawthorne, I suggest you pack your personal belongings and leave. If you refuse, I can call the authorities." Tessa looked at us all with pure hatred. There were no more tears, just rage. "This isn't over," she said in a venomous voice. "I have rights. I'm Marcus's wife. This house will eventually be mine too." Elijah took a step toward her. "You didn't listen to anything the attorney said, did you? This house will never be yours. Never. And if you keep pushing, if you keep trying to get Eleanor out, the house will go to charity, and neither you nor Marcus will see a penny." Tessa gritted her teeth. She looked at Marcus one last time. "Are you going to let them kick me out like this? Are you choosing her over me?" Marcus finally looked up. His eyes were red. "I think you already chose a long time ago. You chose this house over me, over us." His voice sounded broken. Tessa let out a bitter laugh. "You're an idiot! A weak idiot who's never going to leave his mommy's apron strings." She grabbed her purse, which she had left in the kitchen, and stormed out, slamming the door. The sound echoed throughout the house. We were silent for a long moment. Marcus was still standing, motionless, as if he couldn't process what had just happened. Finally he spoke, his voice barely audible. "Mom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Tears began to stream down his cheeks. "I don't know how I let things go so far. I don't know when I stopped seeing you." I wanted to hug him. I wanted to tell him everything was fine, but I couldn't, because it wasn't fine. Nothing was fine. "She pushed me, Marcus. Your wife pushed me and left me bleeding on the floor, and you defended her in front of everyone on my birthday." My voice broke. "Do you have any idea how that felt?" Marcus covered his face with his hands. His shoulders trembled. I know, and I have no excuse. She said things. She made me feel like you were the problem, that you were the one who didn't accept her. And I believed her. God, I believed everything." Rob put the documents back in his briefcase. "Eleanor, if you need a restraining order against Tessa, I can help you with that." I shook my head. I just wanted it all to end. I just wanted peace. For now, I just want her gone and not to come back. The attorney nodded. "Understood. But if she contacts you, if she threatens you in any way, call me immediately." He gave me his card, although I already had his number. "I'll stay available just in case." He said goodbye and left, leaving the three of us in the kitchen. Elijah broke the silence. "Marcus, you need to decide what you're going to do, but whatever it is, your mother can't keep living with this tension." Marcus nodded without looking up. "I know. I need to think. I need to process all of this." He looked at his left hand, where his wedding ring glistened. He slowly took it off and placed it on the table. The sound of the metal against the wood sounded final, definitive. I couldn't sleep that night. I stayed awake in my room with the door locked for the first time in years. My eye throbbed. The swelling had worsened, and the bruise extended to my cheek. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the scene repeat itself. The shove, the fall, Tessa's face looking at me on the floor without remorse. And worse, I saw Marcus defending her in front of everyone. Those words echoed in my head over and over. It was my wife who put her in her place. My own son, my child. How had it come to this? I heard movement in the house throughout the night. Footsteps coming and going, doors opening and closing, muffled voices. I didn't know if Marcus was still here or if he had left with Tessa. Part of me wanted to know. Another part was afraid of the answer. Elijah had stayed in the guest room. He had told me he wouldn't leave me alone tonight, that he would stay until he was sure I was okay. His presence gave me some comfort, but it couldn't erase the pain in my chest, a pain that had nothing to do with the physical blow. When dawn finally broke, I went downstairs carefully. The house was silent. The remnants of the party were still everywhere. Deflated balloons on the floor, abandoned glasses on the tables, plates with half-eaten food. Everything looked sad in the gray morning light. I walked to the living room window. Marcus's car was still in the driveway. He was still here. I didn't know if that relieved or distressed me more. Elijah appeared in the kitchen doorway. He was carrying 2 cups of coffee. He offered me one. "You didn't sleep at all," he said. It wasn't a question. The dark circles must have been obvious. I couldn't. I gratefully took the cup. The coffee was hot and strong, exactly what I needed. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Elijah spoke. "Rob called me an hour ago. Tessa tried to contact him last night. She wants to negotiate." I looked up, surprised. "Negotiate what?" Elijah grimaced. "She wants money. She says if he pays her a certain amount, she'll sign the divorce without issue and leave without making a scandal. If not, she's threatening to take this to the media. She says she'll tell them the family is throwing her onto the street." I felt nauseous. Of course she wanted money. Everything had always been about money. "How much is she asking for?" Elijah hesitated. $50,000. The figure hit me like a punch. $50,000. It was a huge amount, money I didn't have readily available in cash. I would have to sell investments, maybe take out a loan against the house. I'm not paying her anything, I said firmly. She assaulted me. She tried to manipulate my son to steal my house. She doesn't deserve a cent. Elijah nodded in approval. That's what I told Rob. He agrees. He says her threats are empty. She has no legal case. We heard footsteps on the stairs. Marcus appeared. He looked terrible. Swollen eyes, wrinkled clothes, messy hair. He had probably slept as little as I had. He looked at both of us cautiously. "Good morning," he said, his voice hoarse. Elijah didn't respond. I just nodded. Marcus poured himself coffee with trembling hands. The silence was heavy, uncomfortable. Finally, he spoke. "Tessa went to a hotel last night. She's been sending me messages all night. She made a pause. She wants us to talk, to fix things." Elijah snorted. "Fix things? After everything she did?" Marcus sank into a chair. "I know it sounds ridiculous, but she's my wife. We've been together for 2 years. I can't just end everything like this." I looked at him incredulously. "Marcus, she tried to declare me incompetent. She investigated how to take my house. She hit me and left me bleeding. And you want to fix things with her?" My voice rose in volume. "What more does she have to do for you to open your eyes?" Marcus rubbed his face with his hands. "You're right. I know, but it's complicated. I love her. Or I loved her. I don't know anymore." His voice broke. "Everything is so confusing. I thought I knew her. I thought we were happy. And now I discover that everything was a lie, that she only wanted the house, that I was just a means to get what she wanted." Tears started rolling down his cheeks again. "I feel so stupid, so used." Part of me wanted to console him. He was my son after all. But the wound was too fresh, the pain too deep. "Marcus, she didn't just use you, she destroyed me too. She turned my house into a place where I felt like a stranger. She made me feel like I was in the way. She humiliated me in front of everyone, and you let her do it. You participated in it." Marcus nodded miserably. "I know, and I'll never be able to forgive myself." He looked up at me. His eyes were red and swollen. "Will you be able to forgive me someday?" I didn't know what to answer. Could I forgive him? A mother's love doesn't disappear just like that. But the trust was broken. The respect was damaged. "I don't know, Marcus. I need time. I need space. I need to heal." My voice sounded tired. "And you need to decide what kind of man you want to be, because the man who defended his wife after she hit his mother is not the son I raised." Elijah stood up. "I'm going to be direct, Marcus. You need to leave this house for a while. Your mother needs peace. She needs to feel safe in her own home, and right now, your presence only brings her pain." Marcus turned pale. "You want me to leave my childhood home?" Elijah didn't flinch. "This isn't your home. It's your mother's home. And after what happened yesterday, she has every right to ask you to leave." Marcus looked at me, hoping I would contradict him, hoping I would say he could stay, but I didn't. Elijah was right. I needed him to leave. I needed to breathe without feeling the constant tension. I needed my space back. "I think it's best," I said finally. "For now, until things calm down." Marcus closed his eyes as if he had received a blow. "Okay," he whispered. "I understand." He slowly stood up. "I'm going to pack some things." I watched him walk up the stairs. His shoulders were slumped. He looked defeated, and although part of me felt compassion, the other part, the wounded and betrayed part, only felt relief that he would soon be gone. Elijah put his hand over mine. "You did the right thing." I nodded, though I wasn't sure of anything. Nothing felt right now. Half an hour later, Marcus came down with 2 suitcases. He stopped at the entrance of the living room where I was still sitting. "I'm going to stay with a friend for a few days until I find an apartment." He paused. "Mom, I know this doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know that I'm sorry. Truly, I'm sorry. I was a coward, a bad son. I'm going to have to live with that for the rest of my life." His voice broke. "I love you. I've always loved you, and I regret failing you so much." I stood up. I walked toward him. For a moment, we just looked at each other. Then I did something I hadn't planned. I hugged him. It was a brief, tense embrace, full of pain, but it was the only thing I could offer him in that moment. "I love you too," I whispered. "That's why this hurts so much." We separated. Marcus picked up his suitcases and walked out the door. I heard his car start. I heard the sound fading down the street, and then silence filled the house. I collapsed onto the sofa. The tears I had been holding back finally came out. I cried for my son, for the relationship we had lost, for the broken trust, for the pain of watching someone you love choose someone else over you, again and again. Elijah sat down next to me and held me while I cried. He didn't say anything. He just was there. Sometimes that's all you need, someone present in your pain without trying to fix it. The following days passed in a strange haze. The house was silent in a way I had never experienced before. It wasn't the peaceful silence of being alone. It was the heavy silence of absence, of unspoken things, of broken relationships. I looked at myself in the mirror every morning and saw the bruise changing color, from dark violet to yellowish green. It was a constant reminder of everything that had happened, a map of pain painted on my face. Elijah stayed with me for that first week. He cooked when I didn't have the energy. He answered the phone when I didn't want to talk to anyone. Several people called after the party, some with genuine concern, others with morbid curiosity disguised as caring. "Is it true what happened, Eleanor? Did your daughter-in-law really hit you? Did Marcus truly defend her?" Elijah dispatched them all with short answers. "My sister needs privacy. Thank you for calling." And he would hang up without further explanation. Marcus sent messages every day. At first, they were long, full of apologies, full of explanations about how Tessa had manipulated him, how he now saw everything clearly, how he wanted to fix things. I read them, but I didn't reply. I didn't know what to say. The words felt empty. The apologies came too late. The damage was already done. As the days passed, the messages became shorter, more desperate. "Mom, please talk to me. I just want to know you're okay. I miss you." But I continued not to answer. I needed silence. I needed space to process everything I had lived through. One afternoon, Rob Vance, the attorney, came to visit me. He brought news. "Tessa hired an attorney," he said as we drank tea in the living room. "She's initiating divorce proceedings." I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. Relief because it meant she would leave our lives. Sadness because it meant Marcus's marriage had ended in disaster. "What is she asking for?" I asked. Rob grimaced. "She's asking for compensation for the 2 years of marriage. She alleges she quit her job to support Marcus, that she deserves a share of the marital assets." "But Marcus has no assets," I said, confused. "Everything he has is in my name, the house, the investments, everything." Rob nodded. "Exactly. That's why her attorney is trying to argue that Marcus is entitled to an accelerated inheritance, that you should give him a portion of your estate so he can meet his divorce obligations." I was speechless. Even now, even after everything, Tessa was still trying to get to my money, but now she was using Marcus as a legal intermediary. "That's not going to work, is it?" I asked, my voice trembling. Rob shook his head firmly. "Absolutely not. There is no mandatory accelerated inheritance. You decide what to do with your estate and when. No one can force you to give anything, much less in these circumstances." I breathed a sigh of relief. "Does Marcus know what she's doing?" Rob shrugged. "I'm not sure, but he should know. It's his divorce, after all." That night, I sent Marcus a message, the first in 2 weeks. "Do you know Tessa is asking me to give you money to pay her?" The reply came almost immediately. "What? No, I didn't know anything about that." Then another message. "Mom, I swear I didn't ask her for anything. I don't want your money. I just want to fix things between us." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to think Marcus was not part of this plan, but the trust was so damaged that I no longer knew what to believe. 2 more weeks passed. The bruise finally faded from my face, but the wound in my heart kept bleeding. Elijah had to return to his job, to his life. He hugged me before leaving. "You're going to be okay," he told me. "You are stronger than you think." I nodded, though I didn't feel strong. I felt broken. I felt old. I felt alone. The house felt even emptier after he left. One afternoon, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I looked through the peephole and saw a young woman I didn't recognize. I opened the door cautiously. "Mrs. Jenkins?" she asked with a friendly smile. I nodded. "I'm a private investigator. I was hired by your son's attorney." My heart raced. Marcus had hired an investigator? For what? "I've been looking into Tessa Hawthorne's financial past," the woman continued, "and I found information I think you should know." I invited her in. We sat in the living room. She opened a folder full of documents. Tessa has a history of relationships with older or widowed men with assets. Her previous marriage ended when the husband's family discovered she was falsifying documents to transfer properties into her name. A chill ran down my spine. "Marcus knows this?" The investigator nodded. "He was the one who hired me. When he started suspecting, he wanted to know the truth. And the truth is, Tessa is a professional scammer. She has gambling debts of over $80,000. Loan sharks are looking for her. That's why she needed this house so desperately." Everything started to make sense. The rush to marry, the insistence on moving into the house, the constant comments about the property's value, the inquiries about declaring me incompetent. It wasn't just ambition, it was desperation. She was running from her debts and saw in Marcus, in me, in our house, a way out. "There's more," the investigator said. "She was in contact with real estate agents 3 months before the incident on your birthday. She asked them how long it took to sell a property after the owner was declared unfit to make decisions. She had a detailed plan." I covered my mouth with my hand. The horror of what could have happened hit me like a wave. If I had been weaker, if I hadn't had Elijah, if Rob Vance hadn't arrived that night with the documents, Tessa could have succeeded. She could have taken everything from me, my house, my dignity, my freedom. "Marcus saw all this?" I asked. The investigator nodded. "Yes, and he was devastated. That's why he's proceeding with the divorce without any resistance. He wants her out of his life as quickly as possible." After the investigator left, I sat in silence for a long time, processing everything I had heard. Tessa was worse than I had imagined. She wasn't just an ambitious or manipulative woman. She was a criminal, a predator who sought vulnerable victims. And she almost succeeded. She almost destroyed my life. She almost destroyed my son. The phone rang. It was Marcus. I hesitated before answering. Finally, I did. "Hello, Mom." His voice sounded tired. "The investigator came to see me." I confirmed. There was a long silence. "Now you understand why I feel so stupid, so used. I married a scammer and I didn't see the signs." "She was good at what she did," I said softly. "She fooled both of us." Marcus sighed. "But you saw it before I did. You tried to warn me, and I didn't listen to you. I treated you horribly to defend her, and now I have to live with that." His voice broke. "Will you ever be able to forgive me?" The question hung between us. I closed my eyes. I thought about all the pain, the humiliation, the betrayal, but I also thought about the good years, the boy I had raised, the man he could become again if he learned from this. "I don't know if I can forgive you right now," I said honestly, "but I want to try, with time, with space, with therapy maybe." I heard Marcus exhale as if he had been holding his breath. "I want to try too, Mom. I want to get our relationship back. I want to be the son I deserve to be, the son Dad would have wanted me to be." Tears started rolling down my cheeks. "Your father would be disappointed in what happened," I said. "But he would also believe in second chances. He always believed in them." We talked a little more, cautiously, carefully, like two people who knew each other a long time ago and were trying to recognize each other again. When we hung up, I felt strangely light. It wasn't complete forgiveness. It wasn't total reconciliation, but it was a beginning, a small crack in the wall that had been built between us, and for now, that was enough. The following months were about slow healing, like when you break a bone and have to wait patiently for it to mend, knowing it might never be exactly as it was before. Marcus and I saw each other once a week, always in public places, a coffee shop, a park, places where we both felt safe. The first meetings were awkward, long pauses between words, looks that weren't sustained. But little by little, very little by little, we began to find something similar to what we had lost. Marcus started therapy. He told me about it one afternoon while we had coffee. "The therapist says I was a victim of psychological abuse," he said, looking at his cup. "That Tessa used classic manipulation techniques: isolation, gaslighting, gradual control." He paused. "But that doesn't excuse me, Mom. I made choices too. I chose to believe her over you. I chose to ignore the signs, and that's something I have to carry." I nodded. He was right. Being a victim didn't erase the consequences of his actions. The divorce process was long and ugly. Tessa fought every point. She asked for compensation for time invested. She asked for emotional damages. She even asked for the clothes Marcus had given her. Her attorney sent letter after letter, threat after threat. But Rob Vance was relentless. He presented all the investigators' evidence: the documents about her debts, the records of her searches on how to declare people incompetent, her previous marriages, and the patterns of fraud. Eventually, Tessa's attorney advised her to accept a quick and clean settlement, or she would face criminal charges. One afternoon, Rob called me with news. "Tessa settled," he confirmed. "The divorce is finalized. She receives nothing except her personal belongings, and there is a permanent restraining order. She cannot approach either you or Marcus within 200 yards. I felt a huge weight lift from my shoulders. She was gone, truly gone. "Where is she now?" I asked. Rob hesitated. "I understand she left the state, probably fleeing her creditors, but that's no longer our problem." Marcus moved into a small apartment. He invited me to see it one Saturday. It was modest, a single bedroom, basic furniture, nothing luxurious, but it looked clean, tidy. There were family photos on the walls, photos of him as a child, photos with Franklin, photos with me before everything fell apart. "I'm starting over," he told me as he prepared tea. "No pretense, no living beyond my means. Just me, working, healing." He showed me his space with a kind of shy pride. He was a different man than the one who had defended Tessa that horrible night. But the real test came months later. It was a quiet Sunday. Marcus came to visit me at the house for the first time since he had left. He walked through the rooms slowly, touching the walls, looking at the photos, remembering. When we reached the kitchen, he stopped. "This is where everything exploded," he said softly. "This is where Uncle Elijah told me Dad would be ashamed of me." His eyes filled with tears. And he was right. Dad would be ashamed. I am ashamed. We sat at the table. The same table where we had shared thousands of meals. "Mom, I need to tell you something," Marcus began. "And I need you to listen to me until the end." I nodded. He took a deep breath. "I've been working with the therapist on accountability, on not hiding behind excuses, and I realized something." He paused. "Tessa manipulated me, yes, but I let her, because deep down, a part of me wanted this house. I wanted what Dad built, and that made it easier for her to manipulate me." I kept quiet, letting him continue. "When she suggested things about you, that you were difficult or dated, I didn't stop her. Why? Because a small, selfish part of me thought that if you left, the house would be mine. Not consciously, not actively, but the seed was there." Tears rolled down his cheeks now. "And that's why I'm just as guilty as she is. Because my ambition, my greed, allowed all this to happen. It was painful to hear, but it was also necessary. It was the raw truth we had been avoiding. "I appreciate your honesty," I finally said. "And you are right. Tessa couldn't have manipulated you if she hadn't found something in you to cling to." Marcus nodded miserably. "I know, and that's why I don't expect you to forgive me completely. I don't expect things to go back to how they were. I just hope to be able to prove to you, with time, that I am better than my worst decisions." I extended my hand across the table. He took it. "Marcus, your father and I raised you to be a good man. And good men make mistakes, big mistakes sometimes, but they also learn, they also grow, they also find redemption." I squeezed his hand. "I'm not going to lie and say everything is fine, because it's not. But I am willing to walk with you while you work on being better. That's all I can offer you right now." Marcus sobbed. He stood up and hugged me, a long hug, a hug that asked for forgiveness without words. I hugged him back. My boy, my broken son, trying to put himself back together. "I love you, Mom," he whispered. "I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for everything." I cried with him, for everything we had lost, for everything we could still regain, for the long road that still lay ahead. After that day, something changed between us. It was as if we had finally cleaned the wound. It hurt, it stung, but now it could truly begin to heal. Marcus started coming over more often. Not too much. He didn't try to force things, but every week, every month, we rebuilt a little more of the bridge between us. We occasionally had dinner together. He fixed things that broke around the house. I cooked his favorite meals like before. One day he told me he had met someone, a woman from his work. "She's different from Tessa in every way," he told me with a shy smile. "She's honest, transparent. She has her own apartment, her own car, her own life. She doesn't need anything from me except companionship." He paused. "And this time I'm going slow. This time I'm paying attention to the signs. This time I'm going to listen to you if you see something I don't." I smiled. "I'd like to meet her. When you're ready, no pressure." The months turned into a year, then 2. The anniversary of that horrible birthday party came and went. This time we celebrated with just Marcus, Elijah, and me. Something small, intimate, quiet. I blew out the candles on my cake, and Marcus hugged me. "Happy birthday, Mom. I love you." And this time when he said those words, they felt true. They felt real. They felt earned. 2 years after that horrible night, I was in the backyard of my house, pruning the roses Franklin had planted decades ago. The morning sun was warm on my back. The flowers had bloomed spectacularly this season, red, yellow, peach-colored, each one more beautiful than the last. There was something therapeutic about caring for these plants, watching something that seemed dead in winter be reborn with such strength in spring. I heard a car stop in front of the house. It was Marcus, but he wasn't alone. A woman got out of the passenger side. Brenda. I had met her 6 months ago at a casual dinner. She was a middle school teacher. She had a genuine smile and kind eyes, and most importantly, she treated Marcus as an equal. She didn't flatter him. She didn't manipulate him. She simply accompanied him in his life in a healthy and balanced way. "Hi, Mom," Marcus greeted me with a kiss on the cheek. Brenda hugged me warmly. "Mrs. Jenkins, the roses look beautiful." I smiled at her. "Thank you, dear. Your help last month made all the difference." We went inside the house. I had prepared lunch, chicken gumbo with rice and fresh salad. We sat at the table, the same table where so many things had happened, but now the bad memories were being replaced by new, better ones. We ate, chatting about trivialities, Marcus's work, Brenda's students, the flowers in the garden. It was normal. It was peaceful. It was what it should have been all along. After lunch, Marcus and I went out to the porch. We sat in the rocking chairs Franklin had built. "Mom, I need to tell you something," Marcus finally said. My heart raced for an instant. Marcus must have noticed because he quickly added, "It's something good, I promise." I breathed a sigh of relief. "All right, tell me." Marcus turned to look at me. "I asked Brenda to marry me, and she said yes." My first instinct was joy, but immediately fear came, memories of Tessa. Marcus read my expression. I know what you're thinking, and I understand. After Tessa, I was afraid too. But Mom, Brenda is different, completely different, he continued. She knows everything that happened. I told her about Tessa, about how I treated you, about the divorce, everything, and she didn't run away. And there's something else. She insisted we sign a prenuptial agreement. She doesn't want any of my future assets if things don't work out. That surprised me and gave me hope. When is the wedding? I asked. Marcus smiled. We haven't set a date yet, but before planning anything, I needed your blessing. Brenda said she wouldn't marry me if you weren't comfortable, that your opinion is important, that family is built on mutual respect. I felt tears pricking my eyes. You have my blessing, I said in an emotional voice. Brenda is a good woman. I can see it. Marcus hugged me. Thank you, Mom. That means everything to me. Then he added something else. Mom, about this house, I want you to know that I will never ever ask you to leave it. This is your house, your home, and it will be until the day you decide otherwise. Brenda and I are going to build our own life in our own space. We don't need or want this house. Those words freed something in me that I didn't even know I was holding back. Brenda came out onto the porch. Did you tell her? She asked with a smile. Marcus nodded. She walked over and sat on the floor in front of my rocking chair. Mrs. Jenkins, I know I have big shoes to fill. I want you to know that I deeply respect everything you've been through, and if you ever feel like I'm crossing a line, I hope you'll tell me directly, without fear. I looked into her eyes. They were sincere, clear. Thank you for saying that, Brenda. And please, call me Eleanor. She smiled widely. Only if you call me daughter when you feel ready. My heart tightened. Daughter. I'd had a daughter-in-law who used that title as a weapon. Could I open myself up to having another? I would like that, I finally said. I would like that very much, daughter. Brenda stood up and hugged me, a genuine hug, no calculations behind it. Marcus looked at us with tears in his eyes. His family, fragmented and broken, was finding a way to heal. The following months were filled with wedding preparations. This time, I participated. Brenda consulted me on every decision, not because she needed my approval, but because she genuinely valued my opinion. The wedding was held in a beautiful garden, small, intimate, just close family and true friends. When Marcus and Brenda exchanged vows, I cried, but they were different tears than the ones I had shed 2 years prior. At the reception, Elijah sat next to me. How do you feel? He asked. I thought about his question. At peace, I finally replied. For the first time in a long time, I feel peace. Elijah smiled and raised his glass. To peace, to healing, to endings that are actually new beginnings. We toasted. Around us, people laughed, danced, and celebrated, and I was there, a part of it. No longer invisible, no longer displaced. That night, back in my house, I sat in the living room. The house was silent, but it didn't feel empty. It felt full of good and bad memories, full of lessons learned, full of second chances. I looked at Franklin's photo on the mantelpiece. We did it, I said out loud. I protected what we built. I protected our son, even when it meant letting him go. And now, I think we're going to be okay. I got up and walked through the house. Every room had a story. The kitchen where Tessa and I had our final confrontation, the living room where I had been humiliated in front of everyone, but also the table where Marcus and I had begun to rebuild our relationship, the porch where I had received his request for a blessing, the garden where Franklin's roses bloomed every year without fail. This house had witnessed my worst moment, but also my greatest strength. Here I had learned that protecting myself wasn't selfish. I learned that setting boundaries wasn't cruel. I learned that sometimes the greatest love you can give is refusing to be destroyed, because only by remaining whole can you be there when the people you love finally wake up, when they finally choose to be better. I went up to my room and looked in the mirror. 72 years old, lines on my face that told stories, eyes that had seen pain, but also redemption. You survived, I told myself. More than that, you won, not with vengeance, not with hatred, but by staying true to who you are. I lay down in my bed, in my house, in my refuge that no one had been able to take from me. Sometimes protecting the past is saving the future. Franklin knew that when he wrote that clause in his will. He knew I would need protection, and he gave me the tools to defend myself, even after his death. Thanks to that, I was able to stand firm. I was able to say no. I was able to demand respect in my own house, and eventually, that firmness saved not only my home, but also my son. I closed my eyes, feeling gratitude. Gratitude for surviving, for healing, for having a second chance with Marcus, for meeting Brenda, for having Elijah as unconditional support. Life had hit me hard. It had shown me the dark side of the people I loved, but it had also shown me my own strength, a strength I didn't know I had until I desperately needed it. If you are going through something similar, if someone is trying to take what is yours, if you feel invisible in your own life, listen to me. Resist, stand firm, seek help, trust your instinct, and above all, remember that protecting yourself is never selfishness. It is survival. It is self-love. It is justice. The truth always comes out, and those who remain true to themselves, those who refuse to be destroyed, are the ones who ultimately find peace. Did you like my story, and which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect.